It's early morning in Pretoria, 1952. The air is still cool. The mist is just beginning to lift off the wide stone steps of the Central Railway Station in Pretoria. A small crowd has begun to gather quietly, deliberately. Above one set of doors, like at every public building, a sign reads, "Whites only." At the other door, just yards away, the sign reads, "Non-whites." Both entrances lead to the same grand hall inside, the same trains, the same platforms, the same South African morning, but the law says otherwise. On this morning, both lines are full. White volunteers, students, priests, railway clerks stand neatly at one door. Non-white South Africans, factory workers, domestic laborers, are at the other door. They are peaceful. They don't carry weapons. They just wait. Police officers watch from the curb, truncheons in hand. Scant reporters hover nearby because apartheid South Africa censored its news. The authorities know exactly what's about to happen. And then it happens. At the appointed hour, someone nods. Both lines move. They step forward together through the forbidden doors into the same grand hall. For a moment, everything is still. Then come the orders, the arrests, the trucks. 4 years earlier, in 1948, South Africa's National Party had won national elections on the explicit promise of being blatantly racist, of codifying white supremacy into law. Apartheid was no longer just a social order, it was the official operating system of the state. The Defiance Campaign Against Unjust Laws was the first organized effort to confront it head-on. The volunteers were charged specifically with violating segregation laws. Brought before local magistrates, they were sentenced to 30 days in jail or a £5 fine, which was roughly a month's wages for a working person. They chose jail every time because paying the fine meant admitting that the law was legitimate. Many had been trained for this. Some came from Gandhi's Tolstoy farm, where earlier generations of activists, including my grandfather, learned to live simply and to endure hardship as preparation for nonviolent resistance. Life on that farm was deprivation by design. No hot water, no meat, no beds. Everybody slept on thin blankets, ate sparingly, and worked communally. The discomfort wasn't punishment, it was practice. Training for the moral and physical stamina that civil disobedience would one day demand of them. They knew how to go without comfort. They knew how to go without sleep. They knew how to go without fear. The inside of a jail cell frightened them less than a society without fairness. And so they filled the jails. When their 30-day sentence ended, they walked right back to the same stations, the same doors, and did it again, and again, and again. Within 6 months, more than 8,000 people had been arrested. The government, alarmed, responded with new laws that expanded police powers, lengthened sentences, tightened the screws. But it was too late. The moral balance had shifted. Because when a government must jail its citizens for walking through the wrong doorway, it's the government that stands accused. We are many. We are peaceful. Ultimately, they can't jail all of us. This was not a boast. It was a strategy. It was the beating heart of nonviolent defiance. When the weight of the state is turned against its own citizens for exercising conscience and dignity, it exposes the rot at its core. And when they call you lawbreakers, you answer, which law? The immoral one? When they threaten, show up the next day again. When they try to silence you with repression, reply with more people, louder voices, and undeterred steps. The 1952 Defiance Campaign transformed South Africa's resistance from scattered protests into a nationwide act of conscience. What began at a railway station spread through cities and townships and fields and prisons. The world began to watch. The oppressed had taken the stage, and they had taken control of the narrative. And when, years later, American civil rights activists faced their whites-only signs on buses in Montgomery, at lunch counters in Greensboro, on bridges in Selma, they invoked the same moral equation that the surest way to expose an unjust law is to break it peacefully and together. Today, if you organize similarly, not in imitation, but in inspiration, you force a reckoning. Because ultimately, they can't jail all of us. They can lock some of us away, but they can't lock away conscience, dignity, or the idea of freedom. And every arrest becomes a spotlight on their injustice, not your so-called crime. So rise, gather, walk in together. Show them that their zip ties and their handcuffs and their bars are no match for your resolve, your love of your country and of true justice and liberty. It is stronger than their decrees, because this right here is how single, small acts of courage become many, and many become unstoppable.